Oh, I couldn't hear you, Alderman Ray, but I see you there. Alderman.
Yep.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. I do not see you, Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Here.
Alderman Wilson.
Here.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Here.
Alderman Suffredin.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Great. Thank you, Clerk Reed. Welcome everybody to Monday, February 8th, 2021 Evanston City Council meeting. First up, I ask Alderman Wilson if you want to move the motion so we can have this meeting electronically.
Thank you. I move that we suspend the rules to allow us to conduct the meeting using the Zoom video conference service in lieu of an in-person meeting and in accordance with the governor's prior directives related to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Second.
All right. City Clerk, could please take the roll on that motion?
Yes, Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
And Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
All right, so that motion passes the Evanston City Council on an 8-0 vote, and that's due to the pandemic. We're meeting via Zoom with everyone. First up, as always, is mayor announcements. I have a few announcements today, but before I get to those, I want to introduce our Cook County President, Tony Preckwinkle, who is here with us tonight and wanted a few minutes on the agenda. Before I turn it over to President Preckwinkle, I do want to thank the county on behalf of the city for several items recently. One is during the pandemic, the county received the coronavirus relief funds. They did pass along some of those to municipalities, of which Evanston got $632,000 in corona relief funds, which was needed for overtime for our health department officials and others at the Emergency Operations Center who have been battling the pandemic. So thank you, President Preckwinkle, for that. Second, just a shout out to Bill Barnes in the Cook County Emergency Management Office, who has been working closely with our staff, as well as Connections for the Homeless, which has been doing yeoman's work helping our homeless during this pandemic, particularly with getting them into non-congregate sheltering, which literally has cost, over $1 million. And the county's working with us to get that reimbursed through FEMA's public assistance program. So thank you for that. And then lastly, we are very excited here in Evanston to have been working with Rich Minocchio at the Housing Authority of Cook County. And we're very excited to have the first mixed income development project that Cook County is doing, and that you chose to do that here in Evanston in a great location, right at Emerson and Sherman, right next to your Pearlman property that you have here, that we went to that food project that we did a while back that the county did. And it's going to be 168 residential units, of which 51 of those are going to be affordable, 34 at the 60 to 80% AMI, and 17 at the 80 to 120% AMI. So sort of that missing middle that we hear a lot about. So thank you for being creative and innovative, and we're really very pleased with the assistance that we've received from Cook County on a lot of different issues. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, President.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Haggerty and members of the City Council, Alderman. I'm very grateful to be with you tonight. I wanted to share a couple things. First of all, we balanced our budget this year without increasing taxes, and I know that property taxes are a challenge for all of our local units of government, so I wanted to share that first and foremost. We also, as we balanced our budget without raising taxes, we put aside $100 million into an equity fund to help support public transit around the county, to help support our Department of Public Health around contact tracing and the vaccine programs, investments in our Bureau of Economic Development for small businesses and for gig workers. and more money for our criminal justice reform efforts. So we balanced the budget. We didn't raise property taxes. Actually, we didn't raise any taxes. And we put aside money to address racial inequities in our county. I want to thank all of you for working with us to fight the pandemic and the economic collapse which has followed. As you pointed out, Mayor, we were able to share some of our CARES Act money with local units of government, including Evanston's. I'm grateful that you've been able to work well with Bill Barnes from our Department of Emergency Management and Regional Security. Actually, I think last month I was in Evanston with Connections for the Homeless, and Joe Flanagan, who had kind of bent my ear about a plan that he had to support local restaurants and provide food for the homeless at the same time. And it was part of our strategy for supporting small businesses as well as our social service mission that we were able to participate in those efforts. So I'm grateful to Joe Flanagan and Connections for the Homeless for their good work. And, you know, when I was alderman of the city of Chicago, one of the things that I always fought for was mixed income development. And we're very grateful that we've gotten the cooperation of Evanston to build a mixed income senior building, the first of its kind for us in Cook County, in Evanston. So, you know, I really appreciate the help and support we've gotten from you, Mayor, and from the members of the City Council as we've all struggled to deal with this pandemic. So thank you very much for giving me a moment this evening to express my appreciation.
Great. Thank you for joining us, President Preckwinkle.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
All right, a couple other announcements under mayor announcements. First up is COVID and the vaccinations. Just real quick, I want to give people an update there. In terms of the numbers and the data on COVID, and I'll talk about vaccinations in a second, we continue to do really well, not only in Evanston, but across the state of Illinois. Today we had 10 new cases. Our total cases is a little less than 3,700 in Evanston. Our positivity rate is below 1%. Our 7-day moving average is a little less than 10. Sadly, we have seen our deaths increase since the last time we met. We now have 108 Evanstonians who have died due to the pandemic. And our state positivity rate is 3.3%. So all of these indicators are positive. And starting next week on the 16th, District 65, which is K through 8th grade, is going to start to have some of their kids back in the classroom. Some will continue to be remote. Some will do a hybrid model. So this is positive news for our community. In terms of vaccinations, I'm going to start with what I think is positive, even though I do hear from people saying, hey, I want my vaccine. I want to get the vaccination, which I understand. Everybody here in Evanston understands. We continue to have limited supply. We are moving those supplies quickly through our public health department and the points of distribution that we are setting up. To date, we have given first doses to a little less than 3,800 people here in Evanston, second doses to a little more than 900 folks here in Evanston. That is excluding our healthcare folks who are all in that phase 1A. So this is just phase 1B. We are not sitting with a huge supply of vaccines. We are scheduled to have an event this Wednesday. So in 2 days, that will be a second dose event. So we will be reaching out if they haven't already. They may have already to schedule people for their second doses. One thing I want to make clear about the second doses, the CDC has come out and said that those second doses could be administered either 4 days before your date. So remember, if you're on the Pfizer vaccine, that's a 21-day. And if you're on Moderna, that's 28 days. Some people very much say, hey, I want to have it exactly at 21 days or exactly at 28. As you can imagine, this is a huge logistical undertaking. We're waiting on vaccines. We don't know how many we'll get, everything else. Dr. Fauci, the CDC, others have been clear that we can administer second dose vaccines either 4 days before your date or up to 6 weeks after that date. Okay, so if you are on Moderna and that's a 28-day, and 28 days comes and we don't have that second vaccine, we have an additional 6 weeks to get that vaccine in you. So we have a second dose clinic, and then we're trying to schedule another event this week. They just want to confirm the doses that we have from the state on that. Where we are in terms of vaccinating folks is we have primarily vaccinated folks that are 77 years old and older. I think we may have a few hundred. Ike Ogbo told me those folks will be called into the next event. And then we're going to drop the age down to 74 and above. And so as we have the vaccine and have new events, we will be putting it out there. Additionally, there have been some senior care facilities here that for some reason were not included in the IDPH agreement with Walgreens and CVS. So those have been identified here, and our public health department is working to schedule those facilities where we, the city, will go out and conduct those sort of closed vaccination events at those facilities. Lastly, I'll leave you with good news. If it comes to fruition, which we believe it will, IDPH has informed us that we can expect increases in the vaccine quantities that we receive in about 3 weeks. So that would be, towards the end of February. So let's just say come, March 1st, we should be seeing larger volumes of vaccines. We are prepared as a city to significantly increase that if we can get our hands on the supply. Lastly, I do want to address some emails that we receive where folks say, oh, well, I know people in Skokie that are my age, if I'm under 74 years old or 78, where we are right now, that have been vaccinated, or they'll say everybody in this other community has been vaccinated. The reality is that every community is approaching phase 1B slightly differently. And in Evanston, we are prioritizing those who are most at risk of developing severe complications if they were to get COVID-19. And those are folks that are older. And so we've started at that age, and then we're moving our way down. If, again, we find ourselves getting large quantities of vaccine, we may use and do parallel vaccination events so we can start to hit other groups within that phase 1B. But until then, we're still working our way down from the oldest down on phase 1B. Lastly, related to the pandemic, I don't know if it was this weekend, but I saw today that Governor Pritzker has extended residential evictions. The moratorium that is on that now has been extended to March 3rd, 2021. All right, so that's really valuable to renters out there who are struggling. Lastly, there was a vote taken last week in Washington on the $1.9 million relief package, coronavirus relief package. It was not a vote on the bill. That will be later this month, but it was positive in the sense that it moved through the Senate with a vote that would imply that if it passes the House and comes to the Senate, that could actually become law, and that would provide additional aid to our struggling businesses, to our struggling families, and if the local aid is provided in there, also aid to local governments across the country. So that was a bit of positive news last week. So we'll see where that goes. That concludes my announcements today. I'm going to turn it over now to our city manager, Erica.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This evening I have Annie Coakley here from downtown Evanston to talk about the Evanston Winter Games, which is a citywide exciting event that downtown Evanston is going to share. Annie?
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity. I'll be very quick. So, you know, we live in a winter city, and personally, I love winter. So I came up with this idea that I'm partnering with Main Dumpster Mile and the Central Street businesses on a series of challenges to get people outside. And, you know, it's good for mental health and physical health. And the whole game is called Evanston Winter Games. And we have a website, evanstonwintergames.com. I don't know if I can share, but that's okay. I know you have a lot on the agenda. So go to evanstonwintergames.com, and there's a bunch of instructions on how to download the app, which gives you the challenges that you can play. We have a weekly prize, hundreds of dollars worth of gift cards to Gearhead, which is a store in downtown Evanston that bought Uncle Dan's, all the same products, just a new name. And we'll have a finale prizes for a gold winner, a silver, and a bronze. You can guess that we are riffing on the Winter Olympics. You are also given a team color, and stores throughout Evanston are also assigned a team color. And they have lighted LED lights in their windows and QR codes. And all of these things, we're trying to support our businesses, but also to get outside and enjoy the snow. And we have plenty of it to enjoy. So again, Evanston Winter Games, you get information on the app and how to download and how to play and win lots of prizes. Oh, and we have lots of events throughout this as well. The first one is this weekend. It's in the Main Dumpster Mile. We've partnered with Amita Health, who is one of our sponsors, and we're giving out bags. Inside the bags are a checklist of things that folks in need. So you can purchase things, fill up that bag, and then you'll be returning it to Interfaith Action at St. Mark's. We have another event at Temperance. Downtown Evanston bought a series of seats, apparently, essentially at the fire pits that Temperance has. And we're suggesting that you buy their new beer, Where I'm From. And we have an event on February 20th at Fountain Square, an ice carving demonstration. So again, really trying to push people to get out and support the stores and to have fun in the winter. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. That concludes my announcements, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Erica. City Clerk, do we have any announcements?
Yes, there are a few announcements today, which are of import to Evanstonians. Today was the first day for early voting, and so folks can early vote at the Civic Center in room G300. Early voting is available on weekdays from 9 to 5 p.m. And as well as on Saturday and on Sunday from 10 to 4 p.m. So folks can early vote between today and February 22nd. So please get out and vote. If you're someone who has requested a mail-in ballot, you have not received your mail-in ballot yet. The county should be sending those out in the next, if they haven't today already, in the next few days, those should be going out. And so please, get those back as soon as possible. You can also, once you receive them, drop them off at the Civic Center, just also make sure you have them postmarked by Election Day. If you haven't requested a mail-in ballot, I am getting to the point where I would no longer recommend fairly soon. I mean, they haven't sent them out yet, so if you're going to request it, get the request in the next few days. But after the next few days, I would recommend not requesting a mail-in ballot and just doing in-person early voting if you're not available on Election Day, or voting at your local polling place. Today, for the numbers, we typically do this. We had a whopping 38 people vote at the Evanston Civic Center today. So the clerk's office traditionally does text messaging and other outreach. We are not doing that in this election. And so we encourage Evanstonians to and we're not doing that because of potential conflicts. And so we are encouraging Evanstonians to encourage their neighbors to get out and vote in this election. All of the voting information is available on our website, cityofevanston.org, and you can look for voting information And the clerk's page has information as well as other information compiled by staff. I think that's it.
Could I get a point of clarification, Clerk Reed?
Yes.
I'm not, did you say that none of the mail-in ballots have been sent by the county, or that some have and they're going to send the rest imminently?
From my understanding, none have.
Okay, so yeah, all right, I misunderstood that. I was afraid maybe people would have been expecting to have received them by now.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Clerk Reed. We're now going to move to our next item on the agenda, which is public comment. So as everyone knows, we set aside 45 minutes for public comment. We take the total number of folks that have signed up and divide it by our time. So we have 20 individuals that have signed up for public comment tonight. So that means each person will get 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So I ask if you just be respectful and keep your remarks to 2 minutes and 15 seconds. If you hear a buzzer goes off, it means we got to your time, and I need you to wrap up. So with that, I'll list off the three people in a row so everyone knows when they're coming up. And we will start tonight with Carla Thomas, then Lindsay Wade, then Julie Burkett. So welcome, Carla. You're muted. You're muted, Carla.
There we go. Thank you. I'm here tonight to talk about a comment that was made by Alderperson Ann Rainey last week. Ann Rainey is all local and modern day Carolyn Byron. I'm going to say that again. Ann Rainey is our local and modern day Carolyn Byron. Who's Carolyn Byron? Well, because it's Black History Month in this country, and we can't talk about Black history without speaking of the role of white supremacy, let's do a lesson in who Carolyn Byron was. She was the white woman who weaponized her tears, her position, her power, her whiteness to turn a community against a young Black person simply because, one, she harbored irrational racist fears, and two, she knew the absolute power of a white woman's cry against a scary Black man, even when that scary Black man is a boy named Emmett Till. Last week, Ann Rainey pulled a modern day Karen Barrett when, apropos of nothing happening at the moment, Ann Rainey was asked to give a closing statement in her candidacy panel and decided to use to fly her white supremacist flag and simply utter that the 8th Ward residents should vote for her because City Clerk Reed was a scary man. Because when other racist tropes, such as unintelligent, thug, or criminal fail, despite repeated attempts to paint City Clerk as such, white supremacy needs only fall back on the simple fact that he is Black, therefore he is scary. In a way, though, Ann Rainey is correct. You see, there is nothing scarier to white supremacy than a Black person who is wickedly intelligent, who will not back down, and who does not take shit from white people. And who, despite the many, many attempts by this particular city leadership to cut him down, he rises again. Because as our ancestors said, and still we rise. Nothing is more scary to white supremacy than a Black person who refuses to take the place and the bottom rung that has been outlined for us. In Ann Rainey's own words, a Black person who refuses to be set straight is a scary Black person. So be afraid, Ann Rainey, be very afraid. Not because of Clerk Reed, but because your spell on the 8th Ward, your decades of being a racist mouthpiece that have gone unchecked by this town are over. We will vote you out. And to the council members who sat by and let Ann Rainey rain down her racism on this town, and the fact that not one of you spoke out in a statement of censure for the racist behavior, yet you were quick to show up a while ago to censure Clerk Reed for simply taking his laptop home, shame on you. Shame on you, because white silence is violence. And yes, Peter, we know you're Black. But I will close by saying, borrowing the words of the one Alderperson who has spoken against Ann Rainey, and that is Alderperson Tom Suffredin. Ann Rainey, everything you do must be scrutinized because you are sketchy as beep.
Thank you. Next speaker is Julie Burkett. Lindsay Wade, then Julie Burkett, then Jacqueline Lowe. And again, you've got 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And if you hear the timer go off, your time is up. Thank you. Do we have Lindsay with us? Do we have Lindsay Wade? All right, I don't see
I don't
her
believe so,
here.
Mayor.
All right, so we'll come back if we need to. Julie Burkett, are you here?
Here. I am here. I just want my video on. I need my teenager for that. David? Okay, I'll start talking and he can do it for me. Hi, my name's Julie Burkett. I'm a 15-year 8th Ward resident and an Evanston resident since 1972. The Evanston we've all claimed to be and we're all inspired to be has fallen way short for a long time. But honestly, some events in the last week and even more forefront in my mind right now. This past week, during an 8th Ward candidate forum, Alderman Ann Rainey hurled some racist language at Clerk Reed and even chose to double down in a subsequent interview with the Daily Northwestern. I'd love to think that she already apologized to him, but honestly, an apology that is forced is just not meaningful. I would instead like to address my comments to Clerk Reed. I'm proud to have voted for you for clerk, and I've been proud of the way you've handled your tenure as clerk, very often with blatant racism and disrespect shown to you on the dais by the mayor, some city staff, and some current alder people. I'll even be prouder to vote for you as my next 8th Ward representative. I know you will do great things and use all of your adversity to fuel you. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Next up, we've got Jacqueline Lowe, then Mary Beth Schroeder, then Chip Ratliff.
Hello, thank you. City Council of Evanston, your constituents need you to address the racist and dangerous speech of your members, and the people who use such speech must be held accountable. Alderman Rainey's comments on the League of Women Voters Forum calling Clerk Reed scary was the invocation of a very old racist trope that has been used to justify violence against Black men for centuries. Silence from the City Council in regards to this will be judged as complicity and a stamp of approval on Alderman Rainey's only most recent harmful statement, among many, including jokes about protesters being shot by the police over the summer in front of a group of young protesters. That's where she said it. There is no justification for her words, and there is no non-racist justification for the City Council to remain silent in regards to her behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Next up, we've got Mary Beth Schroeder, then Chip Ratliff, and then Mary Rosinski.
Hi, I'm here tonight to speak in support of the honoring of Dino Robinson with naming part of Church Street for him. A well-deserved honor. I'm speaking both as a private citizen and as having led Leadership Evanston for many years at the Evanston Community Foundation. I'm so proud that Dino is an alum of Leadership Evanston and in fact was honored by Evanston Community Foundation as a distinguished alumni in 2011 when we honored him along with Lori Osborne and Susan Hope Engel, other alumni, for having made Evanston history live. I'm an old historian myself, and I mean old, but I really appreciate how important it is for a community to truly understand its history, and Evanston truly did not understand its history before Dino did the incredible yeoman work he has done of discovering our past and making sure it was memorialized and kept and shared with all. So I really just wanted to say how proud I am to know him and how proud I am that the city is honoring him. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mary Beth. It's nice to see you. And just so everyone knows, once we get through public comment, we are going to move up the H2, which is the naming of the road for Dino Robinson. So we're going to put that at the top. So for folks that I know there's many people here excited about that. Let's go to our next public commenter, which is Chip Ratliff, then Mary Rosinski, then Mike Vasilko. Are you here, Chip?
I don't believe so, Mayor.
All right, so we'll come back if he comes back. How about Mary Rosinski?
Hi, I'm here. I too wanted to say how unhappy and actually upset I was when I heard the end of the 8th Ward speech. And, you know, Alderman Clerk is far from scary. He is an outstanding, hardworking man who's done more to educate the people in this town about FOIAs and ethics and other things. And I do not understand why anyone would say that about them unless they were intending for some sort of racist undertones on it. And I was really sad to hear that. The second thing I wanted to bring up is less important, but it is about the change in the parking rules last week. We had I think that if the city of Evanston is going to change rules, we had a voluntary snow days, and my family moved their cars as they, did so that the streets could be plowed. And then sometime, I guess on Tuesday or Wednesday, there was a notice sent out, which we didn't pay attention to because it wasn't snowing. And we thought they were just, talking about more volunteer snow days, only to find out that we hadn't heard the sirens, that they were going to all of a sudden enforce the snow removal emergency dates on 4 days after it had snowed. So needless to say, the people upstairs got a ticket. 3 people in my family got tickets. And the irony of it is that the streets had all been plowed like the day or 2 days before. There was no, and I talked to the guy outside and I'm like, what are you doing? There's not even any snow here. And he points at the sign and says, read the snow day. And it says, on the odd days after the snow. So I don't think that we should be changing rules in the middle and not giving anybody any notice. And so I'm just curious, and I will ask the police department or whatever, how many people got tickets that day that didn't know? And I'm hoping that the city will consider refunding those fees since there was not adequate notice on that. So I just want to make a point on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next up, we've got Mike Vasilko, then Dino Robinson, then Tina Payton.
I've got 3 things I hope to talk about. The first, just quickly, as others have spoken about it, I would add my voice to the crowd that's calling for Ann Rainey to be censured for her comments at the forum, the 8th Ward forum. Secondly, I would like to understand why item E1 is on the agenda. It's the item where you're authorizing a consulting contract for a West Side TIF, a TIF that's apparently must include the sale of the Civic Center property, when the sale of the Civic Center property hasn't been discussed with any of the Evanston citizens, has not been in any public discussions with the city council, where citizens have heard. And it's not been agreed to by the community at large to sell the Civic Center or what it would be used for. So that item should be removed. According to the city memo, the Civic Center must be included in order to make this TIF feasible. So it goes without saying, you can't have that TIF without having the Civic Center included, and you shouldn't be authorizing a consultant if the TIF doesn't make sense. So I would withdraw that item, request that you withdraw it. Lastly, at APNW today, the committee gave the Robert Brown contractor a pass on paying a $500,000 penalty for not achieving minority and women and local employment requirements. So in reality, the city is giving them a bonus, giving the contractor a bonus of $500,000 for not meeting their MBE, WBE, and LEP requirements, which I think is shameful and just another pat on the back for the Robert Brown contractors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right, next up is Dino Robinson. And then Tina Payton, and then Carla Sutton. Welcome, Dino.
Welcome, everyone. I could pass on this. This was in reference to the street naming. I could wait until that segment.
Why don't we do that? And when we get to that segment, we'll let you say a few words, Dino. Sound good? All right.
No problem.
All right. So Tina Payton's up next, then Carlos Sutton, then Priscilla Giles.
Good evening, everyone. Calling all Evanston citizens. If you feel that you are not being represented by your officials, you are now in control by voting. Many of our representatives are building resumes, not building the city that all people can afford to live in. It is now gentrification. Over the last 18 years, 77 units out of 2,285 units, 15 buildings, only 77 units have been built for affordable housing. Only 50% to 120% AMI. No units have been built for 30% or less, which is HUD standard. You are in control. You need to make sure that your voices are heard and that you find people and vote them in who will represent our beliefs in the city of Evanston, and not with this scams of buildings and pretending that we have affordable housing and everybody is happy and everybody can live here in justice for all. That is not true. Please carefully vote for people who are going to represent you and your views. Thank you, and Black Lives Matter.
Thank you, Tina. All right. Next up, we've got Carlos Sutton, then Priscilla Giles, then Renee Payton. Welcome, Carlos.
Yes, Mayor Haggerty, thank you for this opportunity. I want to first express my disappointment at the APW meeting for passing the consideration of the property at 1805 Church, 1708, 1710 Darrell. In the memorandum of understanding, it's misinterpreted by the city lawyer. Part of that agreement implies or provides for the property to be sold or granted to a person who's looking to develop it. And I'm still adamantly opposed to the city become involved with religious organizations to develop a property that they can use to gain rents and to develop. Secondly, I'm also very concerned about the comments by Mrs. Rainey. The parking restrictions with people for handicap should not be determined by the color of the sticker, but by the need of the person who's driving. And third, and more important, I am adamantly opposed to this proposal for development of a TIF in the 5th Ward and to give someone $61,000 to oppose a plan that we have given the city and that has been approved. Give your constituents and your citizens what we elected you to do. If you're there just to oppose everything that we want, then you shouldn't have accepted the office. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. All right, next up, we've got Priscilla Giles, then Renee Payton, then Tricia Conley. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. It seems the pandemic has given the city council an opportunity to push through developers' projects and in the city without residents' input. I believe if you ask the residents on the streets of Dodge, Darrow, and Church, you would find very few people who had any knowledge of the developers' project. The Darrow and Church project is another lost chance for the residents to have the long-needed request to have a building that would teach and train those in need of livable wages in trades. We still need this facility and housing for the poor and who cling to the desire to stay in the city that they helped build. We have no housing, and the $1 million that's being spent for the housing could have been spent on a permanent building for people who live in Evanston, who have lived and made Evanston their home. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Giles. Next up, we've got Renee Payton, then Tricia Conley, then Jamie Robin Collier.
Hello, I'm Renee Payton of the Second Ward, and I agree with everything that Carla Sutton and Priscilla Giles had said. I'm speaking about the preferential treatment and separation of church and state. If you look at the Memorandum of Understanding, the language in that was very inappropriate. It says Mount Pisgah has received the vision for present and future ministry. God has instructed them to build a building that will reflect his glory, power, and majesty alone, with wisdom and direction from God and in obedience to his instruction. Mount Pisgah has started on the path to complete the vision at 1811 and 1813 to 15 Church Street. Now, that language is inappropriate. It definitely violates the separation of church and state. The public, and my question is, why is the city manager negotiating before the official public process has occurred? People haven't gotten notices. There's been no official discussion about this. The memorandum screams of the preferential treatment, and all this needs to be corrected before the city manager should be doing any kind of negotiating. This all seems like it's backroom stuff that nobody knows anything about, and again, we're not being represented. We're being fooled into thinking that things are going our way and we're getting what we want, and we're just getting fooled. That's all I have to say. Black Lives Matter.
Thank you, Renee. Next up, we've got Tricia Conley, then Jamie Robin Collier, then Ellie Harned.
Thank you. My name is Tricia Conley. I reside in the 4th Ward. I have some questions tonight, as many people do. How does the City of Evanston expect to make a commitment to our resolution to end structural racism and achieve racial equity based on the racially charged remarks made by Alderman Rainey at a public event hosted by the League of Women Voters when speaking about Clerk Reed? Mayor Haggerty, you've said publicly in the past, I can't control what an alderman says or does. Is this also the case with this incident that occurred in a publicly held forum when Alderman Rainey made these racist tropes? Do you have a plan to remedy the situation? Will we hear from any of our aldermen, especially our white aldermen, holding your colleague accountable for those racist remarks? What will be the remedy here on behalf of Mr. Reed? What will be done to repair the impact on this of those who saw and heard this and have experienced this racist trauma themselves from white people? People even on this call right now. I would invite anyone who is currently running for office in Evanston to seriously consider, how would you hold a colleague accountable for racist remarks while in the public's view? If we have serious plans to upend systems of racial harm and inequities in our city, we need to hold each other accountable, especially if we identify as white. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Jamie Robin Collier, Ellie Harned, and then Sebastian Knowles.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'd like to discuss item E1, the proposed contract with Kane McKenna to study the creation of the new TIF district that would include the Civic Center block. I listened to the Economic Development Committee discussion on the proposal, and I support a TIF that would leverage increased property tax revenue from new private development, especially if it is used to support affordable housing. And given that the city has a 2035 net zero emission goal for city buildings, it would seem to this casual observer that it would be very costly, if not extremely difficult, to bring the current Civic Center into compliance. So if there is a cost-effective plan to distribute or reconstruct the Civic Center functions in better locations, generate proceeds from the sale of city property that could be used to reduce unfunded pension liabilities, save capital spending, and add property to the tax rolls, it would be a big win. Unfortunately, there's nothing on the city's website that discusses the comparative costs of retrofitting or replacing the Civic Center. However, since the study involves gathering public input that could lead the new council to decide not to implement the $61,000 consulting fees would be wasted. This is a real concern since the mayoral candidates have stated they are not in favor of selling the Civic Center, as have other residents. Rather than approve this expenditure at this time, I would urge the council to hold this item to give staff time to, 1, develop a comparison of cost benefits of retrofitting versus relocating the Civic Center, and 2, hold public meetings regarding the future of the Civic Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Allie Harned, then Sebastian Knowles, then Laurie Keenan.
I think Allie Harned will need you to come back to her.
Okay, so Allie Harned is not available. How about Sebastian Knowles then?
Hi, yes, I'm here. Hold on one second, but I apologize for not having my camera up. I've been out in the snow all day and I look like a mess. So is that okay if I don't?
That's okay. If you can't put your video on, Sebastian.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
It'd be a good 2 minutes and 15 seconds for you if people saw you.
I'm calling in today to talk about the proposed West Side TIF that would include the selling of the Civic Center. First, I want to talk about what tax increment financing, or TIF, actually is. For those that don't know, TIFs are a public financing method that's used as a subsidy for redevelopment, infrastructure, and other community improvement projects that usually go in the form of giving money to private developers to help a blighted community. The problem with TIFs arises with the fact that the funds can be used without oversight below a certain amount, and they choke the tax revenue of the local area. The TIF is funded by allowing the city to solely collect tax revenues up to the increment that was collected until the start of the TIF. For example, if we collect $5 million in a tax area currently, any increase in tax revenue over $5 million would go towards the TIF fund and can only be used by the TIF fund. And TIFs usually last for about 20 to 30 years, which would prevent collection of new tax revenue. So besides me believing TIFs are detrimental to the already burdened revenue stream in Evanston, the idea of selling the Civic Center before an election or even proposing this idea is quite frankly absurd. We've yet to receive any community input, and the selling of the Civic Center should take place after a referendum and should not be pushed through with expediency. So please push this conversation until at least after the election so the public can be further educated on the issue. And as well, I would like to make a statement condemning the actions of Ann Rainey during the forum in League of Women Voters. I believe those comments were unnecessary and quite frankly racially insensitive, and that's not something that we practice here in Evanston. So I do agree with all of the comments made before me and the comments after me as well, that we need to continue to condemn such actions in order to push Evanston into a more equitable future. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you, Sebastian. Next, let's see, Allie Harned, are you ready? All right, so we'll go with Allie Harned, then Laurie Keenan, and then Beth Stair.
Hi. Sorry, it's parent-teacher conferences, so I'm toggling between meetings. I am going to read a statement that's on behalf of the CABG, which is the Community Alliance for Better Government. CABG is a grassroots campaign that supports racial equity, government transparency, and political leadership that espouses these goals. Community Alliance for Better Government unequivocally denounces the harmful acts of racism last week that were directed at City Clerk Devon Reed, our endorsed candidate for alderperson in the 8th Ward. Election season in Evanston may be temporary, but the ugly roots of racism continue to sprout in both veiled and overt attacks in our town. To be clear, smear campaigns that call back allegations that were rooted in racism from the beginning and disproven in the end are violent acts of racism. Smear campaign posts that then encourage horrific racist comments and threats of harm are violent acts of racism. Sharing racist smear campaigns, even with a claim of trying to start a dialogue, is an act of violent racism. Sharing false accusations, which criminalize a Black man or calling him very scary, is a violent act of racism. White solidarity, standing up for the intentions of fellow white people over the harm that was done to a BIPOC person, is a tool of white supremacy and is a violent act of racism. We are deeply disappointed to see these acts by community leaders and hope that they will promptly reflect, learn, and issue retractions, as well as endeavor to repair the harm with Clerk Reed. We look forward to partnering with Devon Reed to bring our vision of a transparent, just, and equitable Evanston to life. Thank you. Black Lives Matter.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Laurie Keenan, then Beth Stair, then Ray Friedman.
Hi, I am not turning my video on also. I am here tonight to speak on a couple of different issues in support of Dino Robinson, which I think is wonderful. I've had the opportunity to hear Dino speak very recently a few times, and his work is commendable and should be celebrated by our city. I am also here to speak on behalf of the West Side TIF in opposing that. I think that it is irresponsible for this council to be making those decisions. I think when you're talking about trying to make it feasible to a developer, you should be having the community's best interests at heart, and we shouldn't be trying to guarantee a profit to the developers. I know that right now there is an email out from our city manager to other organizations to try to partner with them in order to abandon the Civic Center. And that has not been a public discussion. And I like to say that, you know, decisions are being made before public meetings are had, and that is frankly wrong. And for you to be making this decision sounds a lot like the Amy Coney Barrett decision. Lastly, I'd like to speak in support of Devon Reed, as I have often, and I hope that this is the last time that I will have to speak opposing Ann Rainey's deplorable behavior. I think that what she said and her actions were awful, and I have been the victim of it myself, not racially charged. I have seen her vote not to censure herself in casting a tie-breaking vote, not to censure herself. And I think that this city council and this mayor finally needs to take action because I think this should be the last time that people have to come and say these types of things. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Beth Stair and then Ray Friedman.
Hi, this is Beth Stair, 9th Ward. 3 things. One, I've had to come to City Council before to talk about Ann Rainey's racist comments. I don't want to have to do that anymore. I think that really the council should really take a stand and really support the resolution that was passed to end structural racism. And I think that we can't let people on the dais get away with such harmful speech. Okay, and 2, I think it's really great the renaming of the street for Morris Junk, and for Dino, for the new street to be named after him. He's done such great work. 3, I think it's shameful that you allowed the pass on the minority and women-owned businesses for Robert Crown Construction to not hold them accountable for that. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker tonight is Ray Friedman. Welcome, Ray.
Hi, thank you very much, Mayor Haggerty. Good evening, City Council. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who spoke before me. I agree with everybody. I guess it just proves what we've been asking for the past several years. We need some serious discussions, and the discussions need to happen before your votes are taken. So my comment is at last City Council, 2 weeks ago, we paid $14 million for principal and interest in general obligation bonds. Tonight, we're asking to borrow $14 million more from general obligation bonds. So what is the plan for paying back these bond loans? Well, we asked the same question when 2-3 years ago you took out 4 bonds totaling $85 million, $50 million for Robert Crown. 5 years ago, we owed approximately $100 million. Now it's double, or pretty close to double. We've asked repeatedly before and after these bonds were taken, what's the plan for repayment of these bonds? You also voted at last council meeting to shore up the reserves to 16.6%. We're only short about $5 million. What is the plan for raising that money? What about shoring up our pension funds? Now, tonight you're proposing to spend $60,000 for a study, and I know people have talked about the West End TIF, in order to borrow more money. We don't need to borrow more money. What happened to the idea of saving money until we have enough to pay for the projects we want to do? And why is it we need to hire a landscaper for Robert Crown and several parks? Can't any of our 800 employees cut the grass? And why are ads running so often to hire new employees? Don't we still have a hiring freeze? In the past few months, I see there's between 30 to 40 jobs available. Now, it would be extremely helpful and advisable for you all to share with your constituents, all of us, what the plan is here. And please stop spending money we don't have, and please stop borrowing money without a plan for repayment. You need to have several city council meetings just to address citizens' questions and concerns. And remember, when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So why are we planning to fail? Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ray. And we do have one last speaker who wasn't here earlier and is with us, and I think it'll be a good way to end. Let me just make sure. Do we have Lindsay Wade? We didn't have her earlier. Okay, I don't see her, so we're going to end then with Chip Ratliff. Welcome, Chip.
Good evening, Your Honor. Good evening, council members. I'm here to support the resolution to rename portion of Church Street after the amazing Morris Dino Robinson. Dino, for those of you who don't know, Dino is an intelligent, passionate, hardworking individual who 25 years created an organization named Shorefront that is the only Black African-American organization on the Chicago suburban North Shore that collects, preserves, and educates about Chicago's Black history on Chicago suburban North Shore. He did it with one vision. His vision is that Black history should be common knowledge. It shouldn't be something that you have to dig. It should be something everyone knows. It doesn't matter what your race is. It doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. It should be common knowledge. He has spent the last 25 years working, striving, working hours that some of us might not even imagine are possible, even have in our bodies and souls, pointed towards making sure that Black history on Chicago suburban North Shore is kept, and that people who have history in their archives, meaning their drawers or their attics and things like that, have a place to bring so it can be preserved for their family and for the future. He has also put Evanston on the map, and when it comes to Black history, Harvard oversees, South South Africa. I can name so many countries and so many venues that reach out to Shorefront, Dino Robinson. So I could go on and on about Dino. I'd love to, but I know you have other things to do. I implore you to approve the resolution to move forward and name the portion of Clark Street after Morris Dino Robinson Jr. Thank you.
Thank you, Chip. Stick around. We're going to move that to the top of the agenda right after. We've got one more public speaker who wasn't here earlier that I understand has joined us, and that's Lindsay Wade. So Lindsay, you have 2 minutes and 15 seconds if you need all that time tonight. So welcome.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I don't appreciate Ann Rainey's comments for Devon Reed in the League of Women Voters Forum the other day. And I think that because her comments about him being a scary man were based in racist stereotypes, I don't think that she should be allowed to speak publicly anymore on any of our community forums. Her behavior from the League of Women Voters Forum was racist, and I don't think that any political candidate or any political figure should expect to be racially attacked when they go on to debate or speak on, any kind of political or community forum. That's just completely uncalled for. And her hate has nothing to do with politics or the issues that either of them care about. It's just the fact that Ann Rainey is a hateful person and she shouldn't be allowed to talk anymore.
All right. Thank you. All right. That concludes public comment tonight. We're now going to move to our agenda, and I'm going to ask Alderman Ruth Simmons, if you would move. We're going to move up H2. If you would go ahead and move that right now.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Haggerty. H2, the Parks and Recreation Board recommends City Council adoption of Resolution 14R21, designating the portion of Church Street between Hartree Avenue and Gray Avenue with the honorary street name sign Morris Dino Robinson Jr. Way. 3 street signs are made for the honoree. 1 sign is installed at the end of each street of the designated block area, and the 3rd sign is given to the honoree. The approximate total cost to create all 3 signs is $200, and funds for the street name program is budgeted in our Public Works Agency. And I move this for action.
Second. All right, lots of seconds on this. So now it is open up for conversation. So here's what I was thinking we do. We can have some conversation, do a vote, and then we can turn it over to Dino if you'd like to make some remarks. Does that make sense? Does that work? Okay.
Yes.
Sure. All right. So let's do that. So just show me an indication if you want to say something. Let's go with we'll go with Alderman Ruth Simmons first, and then Alderman Braithwaite. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to thank Dino and everyone else. Dino, you have waiting for you dozens of notes of support that'll be in the record forever. They are being sent to our clerk's office so that you can have them and you can build your own archives within your archives. So I prepared a note as well, and I'm going to read it to you. As you know, it is a special honor to serve the residents and businesses in Evanston. In doing so, we observe countless residents and partners that make transformational impact in our city. The highest expression I have to tangibly acknowledge community impact and my appreciation in my official capacity is to request support for an honorary street naming. Dino Robinson founded Shorefront Legacy in 1995 and incorporated in 2002. And at his expense and sacrifice, and driven by his commitment to uplift and preserve the Black experience in Evanston and the North Shore, has grown from one historic document to now a premier history museum with thousands of archival documents, 350 linear feet, hundreds of digital collateral, published books, documentaries, research papers, and more. Dino has supported us in documenting our history, educating our families, and defending our legislation recently. Mr. Robinson supports our schools, community organizations, city staff, city council, our Evanston commissions and committee, the faith community, families, and individual residents with the knowledge of our history to improve our future. Mr. Robinson's investment in our city will live on and share our truth for generations to come through the Shorefront Legacy Center. We are better able to reach our goals in equity and empowerment with the important and rich history Mr. Robinson has preserved. It is clear through his work that Mr. Robinson is indeed a griot and deserving of recognition that an honorary street naming would bestow. Please join me in this gesture of appreciation in the honorary street naming of Mr. Dino Robinson. And because we are in the middle of a freeze and COVID, we won't have any immediate ceremony. But I wanted to make this as official as possible for you because you are so deserving, Dino. I have seen you work an additional full-time job for the city of Evanston recently. And we as a city just want to let you know how much you are appreciated and valued. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alderman Ruth Simmons. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brother Dino, congratulations. When I heard 25 years, it made me think, Jesus, I think that's how long we've known each other. And I remember when you first started Alpha Word, all your help in teaching me like the basics of graphic designing. And I also remember when you first started Shorefront, and a little anecdotal story, like I remember like, who is this guy walking around with this magazine at such a young age? And to see how much you have accomplished, my brother. I continue to learn from you. We thank you so much for your contributions to the reparation movement here in town. And I couldn't think of a better person to have this honor. So congratulations to you, your family, and all the supporters that follow the work that you do on this call. Bless you.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Wilson, and then Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you. And I'm just honored to be in a position to support this resolution. Mr. Ratliff's words really resonated with me when he said that Black history should be common knowledge. And I don't think anybody in the history of Evanston has done more towards putting us in that direction. So I hope those words resonate with the community. I hope people reach out and experience what you've put together. And you can't put a value on the work that you've done. We're very grateful, and I'm just happy that we can make this small gesture to reflect our community's appreciation for your work. So thank you for all of it.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo, Dino, everything that all of my colleagues have said so eloquently. But also, in particular, I want to thank you for enlightening us all about our history here in Evanston, and also sharing with us the importance of history, even particularly on an individual level, and how important it is that we all are part of history, and that those letters and photos and scrapbooks are really critically important to help us understand where we came from and help us chart our future. I still treasure my Shorefront magazines in paper. You know, I'm still a paper person. I think I probably still have a file of them. And as someone who studied a lot of history, worked on oral histories in college, I understand how hard it is to do this, but nothing like what you've done, but how important it is. And you are a treasure in our community. And we are really indebted to you. Every single Evanstonian is indebted to you for all of the work that you have done. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen. Are there any other aldermen that have anything? Alderman Fleming.
I do, and Clerk Reed has his hand up. I didn't notice what that was, but Dino, I just want to thank you for your love of the Black community here in Evanston, and that you took this on for no money, no glory, just because you loved Black people and wanted their history to be kept. So thank you for that. Thank you for, I think, being one of the few people who still remember Sam White. So thank you for that, keeping that legacy in our family alive, and all the ways in which you've, archived many families, but, personally, I don't mind family and their contributions. So So thank you for that. And this is the least that we can do as a city for all that you have done for so many people here.
All right. Thank you, Alderman Fleming. I apologize to the other alderman. For some reason, I can't see everybody on one page, so I've toggled and see lots of other hands up here. So we'll go just as I have it in the order: Alderman Revelle, Alderman Fisk, then Alderman Rainey.
Oh, well, just to add to the wonderful and well-deserved comments from my colleagues, I just want to say how privileged we were in the 7th Ward and the 6th Ward to be able to hear from Dino at our joint ward meeting a couple of weeks ago about Evanston's history. And I had so many emails after that meeting from residents who had attended that meeting saying it was the best board meeting, but certainly just the best meeting that they'd attended in a long time, and how grateful they were for all the information, Dino, that you provided. And just really thank you so much for all your work and for sharing it with all of us.
Thank you, Alderman Revelle. Alderman Fisk.
Hi, Dino. Well, thanks so much for all of your work. 25 years is incredible. And I can only tell my colleagues on the council, having labored in the fields of Evanston history, how really difficult it is to find information on marginalized communities within Evanston. It is sometimes an impossible task. Dino has persevered, and I guess what I would say is that he's made our community and our history whole. And that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And we can't know who we are and where we live and what's special about this community when part of our community is not represented. I love what you've done. It's so important to me that this be part of not only who we are, but going forward. No one can take this away from us. This is now real stuff, and it's real. It's really, I don't know, so encouraging to me that we were here, not only to honor you, but also to thank you, because it's not easy. Sometimes you feel like, oh my gosh, where is this going, and how can I possibly do this work and still put food on the table and do all the other things? But that's the labor of love part of it. And that's really what keeps you going. I'm just so happy to be here tonight to honor you and thank you for what you've done. It's not over. You're going to continue on doing it, and but we're a better community because of you. And I want you to know that. So thanks so much.
All right, and then we've got Alderman Rainey.
And Dino, I want to thank you more than you'll ever know for introducing me to Spencer Jourdain, and for introducing me to the Dream Dancers. Never in the world would I have ever thought that you would have connected me to my ancestors in Massachusetts. And that's what you and Spencer did. It was just an amazing connection. And it just one of my favorite all-time things about Evanston. So thank you. It was really a treat. I'll never forget it.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. And Clerk Reed, did you have your hand up? Again, I apologize to the Alderman. I'm not having everybody on one screen. Now it looks like I do. You're all scattered, but I don't see Clerk Reed.
Yes, all right. I wanted to make a quick comment to just say to recognize Dino and all of the work that he's done. I owe Dino a great deal because I first met Dino a few years ago, and I don't know if he knows that I met him. I mean, I met him. I don't know if he met me. But there was a Northwestern event with Doria Johnson, who has passed, and they were together talking about the Great Migration to Evanston. And when I heard that story, I connected in my mind that my family had come from that general area of the Carolinas, and around that same time period. So I did some digging into my own family history and found, I learned about my own family history through the work that Dino's done. And it's just so important, as Alderman Nguyen mentioned and Alderman Fisk and others, the telling of personal stories, and the keeping and the retelling of those personal stories, because it should inform the way we do things. And, I know we spent some time, the clerk's office spent some time down in Shorefront with you when we were doing some research for reparations. And what I think I know about you, Dino, is that, I'm sure this is a great honor, but I think the greatest way to honor you, and I think you might agree with this, is to learn from the history that you have taught us and that you have brought forward from us, and to take that history and use it to inform the way we do things today, understanding, the outcomes and the intentions of the way we've done things in the past. So I hope that, I pledge to continue on doing that work, and I believe members of the council also are on board with that mission. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Clerk Reed. All right, I think everybody's had a chance. I hope you're feeling the love, Dino. There's a lot of love here. I will just add, we are a work in progress, right? As individuals, as a community, you know the history, you see the work in progress that we are as Evanston, the city. But you made a big difference to the pride that everybody feels and the work that lies ahead, which is a lot. And you're part of the reparations committee, but in being the first community to have reparations. And, I'll never forget, that red line exhibit, that came through Evanston, and and I think it was probably you. I was going to say you and your staff, but I'm not quite sure who the staff is. I've never met the staff unless Steve and Jeannie count or something. But, you put, an Evanston specific board together, and that made a difference. And when people see in writing, the redlining and the other actions that were taken in this community, it makes a big difference. So, this is well deserved. I'm surprised there isn't already a street named after you. So let's make it official. The motion was moved and it was seconded. And this is H2 Resolution 14-R-21, designating the portion of Church Street between Hartree Avenue and Gray Avenue with the honorary street name sign Morris Dino Robinson Jr. Way. Clerk Reed, could you please take the vote?
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey. Sorry. Yep. But I think I see you said yes. I can't see all the screens as well. Alderman Rainey, Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
And Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Right, so on a 9-0 vote, a unanimous vote, we now have an honorary street named after Morris Dino Robinson Jr. Congratulations, Dino. Well earned, well deserved. As I promised, I'm going to give you a couple minutes for the floor, Dino, if you'd like it.
Thank you so much on behalf of Shorefront, the City Council. I really enjoy working with the staff there, the City Council, and all those, the mayor and those who've come before. I want to give accolades to Chip Ratliff. He spoke on our behalf. Chip Ratliff is our current board president of Shorefront. And I also see that my parents are on this call, as well as my brother coming in from Colorado. So thank you both for being longtime supporters of my crazy ways growing up and sticking with me. I really owe a debt of gratitude toward the city of Evanston's community, especially the Black community. You helped raise me. I've been here since 1980, and all I could think of is how strong this community is and what way can I give back to a community that gives so much. And I'm sitting here right now at Shorefront. I decided to come over here because I don't know if the general public has ever, all of them have been in Shorefront, but this is a labor of love. We have a dedicated board of advisors, and a dedicated honorary board, and a dedicated community that helped grow this collection. I started with just a file folder with just a few paper clippings, but if you can see behind me, and I'm kind of going to do a quick walk tour, there is a lot here. If you ever get a chance to see what we have, these are files that have been collecting for decades. And we're talking about 23 shelves and boxes, all given and donated by the Evanston's Black community. So this is a growing collection. We're still getting information every day. We've gotten several shelves recently, and I just can't thank the community enough for seeing the importance in this and how this community can utilize the archives that we have. So I am deeply humbled and honored, and thank everyone for your long-term support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dino, and congratulations. And we all look forward to when the timing is right and we're not in the midst of a pandemic to come out and celebrate this good occasion. All right, with that, we're now going to move to our special orders of business. Alderman Rainey, could you please move SB 1?
Yes. SB 1 is Clearwell 9 replacement project status update. Our staff recommends City Council accept and place on file the Clearwell 9 replacement project status update. I'm assuming there's going to be a report by our staff on this. Very interesting. 98% complete.
Can you just move that for action?
Yes, I move approval.
Second.
All right, so this is open for discussion. City Manager Storley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are you with us, Erica, or did you freeze up?
Off right now to the Public Works.
Erica, I'm sorry, you froze up there. So if you just want to start, I had just turned it over to you and then you froze. So go ahead and start again.
Perfect timing. I was just going to mention that this project has been going on for a couple of years now. Very large infrastructure project that's going to allow us the opportunity to preserve our quality drinking water for our community and for the communities that we sell to. So at this point, I will hand it off to Dave Stonebeck from the Public Works Agency.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Alderman, and Clerk Reed, City Manager Storley. I'd like to introduce Paul Maiano. He's the senior project engineer that worked on this project and oversaw it on behalf of the City of Evanston, and he'll lead us through the presentation.
I'm going to try to share my screen here. Is the presentation showing?
It is. We can see it, Paul.
Great. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Manager Storley, Clerk Reed, and Alderman. My name is Paul Moyano. I'm a Senior Project Manager in the Public Works Agency. Before coming to the city almost 5 years ago, I spent 20 years as a civil engineer in the municipal water sector. On my first day with the city, the Clearwell 9 replacement project was handed to me, and I've been asked to summarize this 9-year effort over the next few minutes. See if I could change this slide. Great, things are working. The city's water treatment plant includes 9.4 million gallons of treated water storage on site, including 5 million gallons of storage located in a reservoir or clear well across the street from the water plant. The storage is part of the treatment process and also provides emergency reserves for our regional water supply. On this slide, the construction of the new clear well can be seen in a couple of different stages. The Clearwell was originally built in 1934 for less than $100,000 in an easement on Northwestern University property at the northwest corner of Lincoln Street, North Campus Drive. In 2012, an inspection concluded that the roof of the Clearwell had severely deteriorated and the parking lot on top of the reservoir had to be closed during winter months to avoid overloading the structure with snowplows. So in 2014, the city contracted CDM Smith to prepare a report studying alternatives for fixing the Clearwell. 5 feasible options were considered, including repairing only the roof, replacing the clear well in the same location, and relocating the structure elsewhere. A cost-benefit analysis determined that the most beneficial long-term solution was to replace the clear well in the same general location. So the city then decided to move forward with the clear well replacement project. The city hired CDM Smith for engineering services, which included a 2-year multidiscipline design effort and 2 years of engineering services during construction, providing both on-site and office-based technical support that was critical for the success of this project. At the end of 2018, the city awarded a $19.8 million contract with Thieneman Construction to build the new clear well. The total project cost shown on the slide also includes approximately $800,000 for a sheet pile wall installed and paid for by Northwestern University between the clear well and the dorm to the west. Northwestern also paid for temporarily widening North Campus Drive during construction. City costs for the project were primarily funded by a $20.6 million loan from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. The loan has a 20-year term with a 1.84% interest rate, and the resulting debt service will mostly be covered by an increase to wholesale customer rates that reflects the cost of the new water storage asset, so therefore it does not impact the Evanston retail water rate. Primary components of the project include the 5 million gallon clear well, a new 400 horsepower pump designed to deliver 10 million gallons of water per day. Construction was managed to keep changes to approximately 2.5% of the contract amount. The clear well and pump are now in service. Construction is nearly complete, and only punch list items are remaining under the city's contract. Final restoration will be completed by Northwestern in the spring. The new clear well provides a number of improvements over the previous one, not to mention, or not the least of which, is the new structure itself. The new submersible pump installed inside of the clear well, along with the new electrical room built across the street at the water plant, provides improved flexibility and efficiency for the water supply. The pump also provides greater access to the water storage, improving resiliency of the overall water supply system. The clear well was also designed to improve water quality by creating a more defined flow path through the water, or for the water through the reservoir. The new green space on top of the reservoir will increase the life of the structure and better protect our drinking water. Additionally, the rainfall will filter through the landscaping, attenuating stormwater flows and improving runoff water quality. During construction, there were 800 concrete truck deliveries arriving on site every 6 minutes during our 5 major pours. We had over 200 dump truck deliveries bringing soil just to cover the top of the clear well. There's 975 tons of reinforcement steel embedded in the structure. There were 98 weekly meetings, 451 technical submittals, 47 items documented in my construction change log. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or provide more information later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Could you take the, so I can see the whole screen of everybody, if you could take the presentation down.
Yes. I hope so. There we go. Sorry about that.
No, perfect. First off, let me just say, Paul, the regular person and around town doesn't necessarily know what goes into, a bunch of infrastructure around Evanston, whether it's water utilities or others. As you mentioned at the outset, this is a 9-year effort to do this project. I just want to, on behalf of everybody in Evanston, there's nothing more important than having, clean, safe, healthy water every single day whenever we want it. It's there. And I just want to thank you and the entire team and Dave Stonebeck and Daryl King and everyone for this, because again, it's something that's underground. We don't necessarily all see it, but we use it every single day. So thank you for everything you've done to oversee this project successfully. And it's incredible. I mean, doing it all with, change orders less than 2.5% for a $20 million project. Well done.
Thank you. I think it was great support from a lot of people throughout the city. So thank you very much.
Well done. Alderman Braithwaite.
Just a quick, I'm looking for Director Stonebeck because he was straight in front of my screen, Mayor, and I don't think I've ever seen more prouder smile. And I don't know, Dave, if you wanted just to say a few words. It's not common, but I haven't seen that kind of look on your face in quite some time.
Well, this was a major project to get completed, and it has been something we've been working on for a very long time. And it really does improve the efficiency of the water plant. Just regulating the flow through the reservoir rather than just having it come in and go out as it pleases. Plus having the pump in that. So we had 5 million gallons of storage, but with the old reservoir, we could really only drain it down and leave about 1 million gallons of water in the tank. We just couldn't get to. So putting the pump in the reservoir allows us to use that full 5 million gallons if we ever really need to get to that. So it's a great project.
Thank you, Dave. Alderman Fisk?
Yeah, Paul, is the pump the long tube on the floor? Is that the?
That long tube on the floor is one of the outlet pipes where the water exits through. Unfortunately, I didn't have room to put a picture of the pump on, but the pump is about the size of, or bigger than a person, lowered through the roof of the pump, or through the roof of the reservoir down to the bottom of the floor.
So the pump is replaceable, is that right?
It is. It should be lasting many, 10 to 20 years, but it is replaceable, and it needs to be removed for regular inspection and maintenance.
Okay, thanks.
I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Northwestern, who was certainly a partner, and we have the easement, it's on their property and everything, for being a good partner on this project as well. Any other comments or questions?
I just want to support or thank all the aldermen and for their support in allowing this project to move forward. I know there were some residents in the city that thought this was a waste of money and could have done it cheaper, but in the long run, it's definitely, in my opinion, this was the way to go and will really benefit the residents of Evanston for a long time.
Thank you, Dave. Along those lines, I would say that the decisions that our city staff have made, going back generations, have been good. Oftentimes, I'm sure there's been plenty of bad ones, but on some of these big infrastructure kind of projects, they've been good decisions. And in the midst of a pandemic, I am so thankful that this city has invested for a long, long time in a public health department, because it's making a big difference. And while it's underground, I'm thankful that we've made the investment into this facility at the water plant. Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, I do want to say thank you as well. I think our public works, our infrastructure is, as the mayor just said, is one of those silent, unseen aspects of our city that ensures our quality of life. And Dave and Paul and also Laura Biggs, I want to make sure you get acknowledged, because this is one of those things that without it, our lives would be very different. And with it, we barely know it's there. And that's the best kind of infrastructure. So thank you.
You're here. All right, so seeing no more questions or comments, we had a motion to accept and place this on file that was seconded. Clerk Reed, could you please take the roll on SB 1?
Yes, gladly. Alderman Ravel?
Aye.
Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Alderman Fleming?
Aye.
Alderman Fisk?
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite? Aye. Alderman Nguyen?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Aye.
And Alderman Sufferton?
Aye.
All right, so on a 9-0 vote, we're going to accept and place this on file. Nice job, everyone from the city of Evanston. Well done. All right, Alderman Rainey, could you please move SB 2?
Yes, SB 2, our staff is requesting directions on the lead service line replacement plan to be used in conjunction with the 2021 water main replacement project. This is for discussion. I move approval.
Second.
All right, so this has now been moved for discussion. I'm going to turn this over to the city manager, Storley, to begin this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a lot of discussion happening throughout the country about lead water service lines, and this is something that we've been talking about internally as a staff for many years. There's some pending legislation that's come about. Nothing has passed yet, but we felt it important to bring this to the council for discussion so that we can talk about what a plan might look like here in Evanston. So this is a pretty dense topic. So Dave and his team have put together a presentation that they're going to walk you through, and then we'll have some discussion.
Thank you, and good evening again. Dave Stoneback, Public Works Director. And I'm going to ask Paul Mayana to share our screen again and put it on the slideshow. So the events that occurred in Flint in 2014 really brought the attention of lead services to the public eye. And just in December this past year, the Environmental Protection Agency passed a new lead and copper rule that will go into effect in 2024. Lead service lines are inherently not good because any quantity of lead could lead to health effects. Evanston actually creates partial lead service lines when we do the water main work. And so one of the options would be is to stop doing water main work, but that's not what staff is recommending, because as the next slide will indicate, we have an issue with the age of our water mains.
Dave, could I just interrupt? Paul, could you please press the play slideshow so that it works better for the TV?
Did that do it?
Not yet.
No, it did not, Paul.
Huh, it doesn't seem to want to do it. I'm sorry, I thought I was.
So slideshow is up the top next to animations. To your right. One more. There you go.
Thank
From
you.
current slide. Move over one more spot, Paul. There you go. Thank you. Hopefully if you click that, we'll go into full screen.
I'm clicking it. Not sure why that's not working. Could I?
There it is.
This a lot bigger? Is that better?
That is better. Thank you.
I apologize.
So as this diagram indicates, over 55% of the water main in Evanston is over 80 years old. In 2010, we brought a similar map to the City Council recommending that we replace 1.5 miles of water main a year, because at that time, over 59% of the water main was over 80 years old. So we have made some headway on this, but not enough. So staff recommends that we continue to do the replacement of water main on an annual basis, replacing 1% of the water main or 1.5 miles. The next slide shows how we wind up creating these partial lead service lines, and that is because the city is responsible for the water service line from the water main to the shutoff valve that's in the parkway. So as we replace the water main, the city also replaces that portion of the water service up to the shutoff valve, and then we reconnect to the existing lead service line that is the homeowner's responsibility. So the dark blue is the homeowner's responsibility, light blue is the city's responsibility, and we replace the light blue portion is when we do the water main work. This diagram is also good for another issue that's about the lead service line, is that in Evanston, when they constructed the homes, they excavated one trench out to the street from the home, and they put the sewer service in first, and they put the water service pretty much right on top of it. And that is against current state code, in that you have to have 18 inches vertical separation for 10-foot horizontal separation. So part of the challenge of replacing the portion of line from the shutoff valve to the house is that you also have to create this separation, which is not always an easy task to do. As recent data indicates that when you make these partial lead service lines, because you disrupted the coating that's on the inside of the pipelines that we had as part of the water treatment, you potentially can cause high spikes in lead levels. And so that's something that we want to try to avoid. And in fact, by the recently adopted lead and copper rule, they'll prohibit partial lead service lines as soon as 2024. Recognizing that, the city passed an ordinance in 2017, and if you could go to the next slide, Paul. That program implies a $50 application fee. It's an interest-free loan. We lent out a maximum of $4,800 to any one property owner, and then the property owner repaid the loan as $100 a month over 4 years on the utility bill. So it shows up on, because the utilities bill goes out every 2 months, it showed up as a $200 fee. During the course of since 2018 through 2020, we replaced 301 services as part of the water main project, but only 21 properties took advantage of the loan, indicating that we're only getting about 7% participation in the current loan program. And the next slide indicates the water mains that are proposed to be replaced in 2021. Next slide, please, Paul. As you can see, the water mains are at several different locations throughout town. And knowing that in the future, the lead and copper rule will not allow us to create partial lead services, we're seeking direction from the city councils if that is something that they would like to begin implementing in 2021 with this water main project. There's no funding to specifically allocate that would help improve the loan program. So staff is thinking that maybe one of these lines of water mains that we're proposing to replace this year would be deferred to a later year, and we could take the funding that was allocated for that water main installation and apply it towards a more improved loan program or some other economic means of trying to incentivize property owners to replace their portion of the lead service line. Could you go to the next slide, please, Paul? So maybe in the future, given enough time, we could have the replacement of the full lead service line as part of the water main project, meaning that the homeowners would have to allow us to go into their homes to replace the lead service line. But for 2021, we're too far into the design, and we've already submitted the drawings to the IEPA for approval, that it's not feasible to add that work to the construction project in 2021. Instead, it will be a burden for the homeowner to try to do this work. But we think that if we increase the incentive for them to do that, that we could get better participation. And staff has come up with 3 suggestions as to how we might be able to do that. That's indicated on this slide, and we'll talk about them as we move forward on other slides. The first one is to just modify the existing interest-free loan program that we have. We currently limit it at $4,800, although the average cost of replacing the water service line is $6,000. And based on the 21 projects that we did earlier, the price can range from $4,150 all the way to $8,600. So we could increase the loan amount to the full plumbing cost. And then I would suggest that we also increase the term of repayment so that the repayment schedule continues to be $200 on every water bill. But if you borrow more than $4,800, it would take longer than 4 years to repay it. Another suggestion is to define several different economic levels, and then we could use a combination of grants or loans based on the property owner's ability to afford the replacement of the private portion of the water service line. And a third suggestion is to use census block data to determine if grant funding should be utilized, specifically in the low to moderate neighborhood where incomes do not exceed 80% of the area median income. So we already talked about the first suggestions, modifying the current loan program. The next slide indicates what the average median income is based on the number of people in the family, and then what that percentage of the area median income is. Right now, to qualify for the CDBG housing rehab program, you have to be at or under the 80% AMI. And then for the CDBG housing rehab program, it's funding in the form of a deferred loan payable when the property is sold. And that's currently being more or less overseen by community partners for affordable housing that manage the construction work. So the alderman could give recommendations that if they wanted to provide grants for property owners under a certain level of the MI, it wouldn't have to be the 80%. It could be anything that the alderman think is appropriate. You might want to establish another level to say if you're under a certain level, you're economically really hurting and you might get a grant. If you're between the next couple of levels, maybe you can apply for the loan. And if you're over a certain level, you're economically stable and you could still apply for the loan, but maybe at a different amount. So there's lots of different options that could be pursued there. And if you go to the next slide, please. This map overlays the CDBG areas where the average home is at or below the 80% AMI. And maybe we just want to say for areas where we replace water main within these areas that a grant is provided. So those are the different options that we have. There is one more slide to talk about future considerations. We'll go there and then we can open up for questions. So we hope that by 2024 that we'll have the full lead service line replacement included as part of the annual water main project. We'll also have to deal with the existing partial lead service lines that exist. There's over 4,300 of those. In accordance with the lead and copper rule, the city is going to have to come up with a written plan for lead service line replacement. And then I think it will be important to monitor what's going on at state legislation. The state was looking at passing several bills which are actually more stringent than the lead and copper rule. So I think that we'll need to educate our state legislators and make sure that they're aware of the impact that this will have on us. And then we'll have to talk about funding, about how we're going to pay for doing this additional work that we currently don't plan on spending funds for on the private side of these lead service lines. So with that, Paul, can you take the screen down so we can see the alderman, and I'll seeking direction and try to answer questions.
Hey, Dave, I see lots of hands up. Just a fundamental basic question just for those that are watching. Can you just talk about whether there's a health hazard right now to people, and most of us have lead service lines leading up to our homes. You know, I want to make sure everybody understands that why is this an issue? Why is the state law exist? And is this a, you know, clear and present danger to us all, or what?
No, it's not a danger at this time. In 1992 is when the first lead and copper rule came out, and Evanston had to do sampling, and our samples were above the limit, in which then Evanston had to come up with a corrosion inhibit control program, which we started in 1992. And since that time, the lead levels in Evanston have always been below the action level of 15 parts per billion. Generally, we're in the range of like 7 to 10 parts per billion. The new lead and copper rule has more stringent testing and different type of testing that right now you have to take your first draw after overnight letting the water sit. Now it will be like the 5th liter bottle, which is where the lead content is even higher. But even based on that, and based on our current sampling, we believe that Evanston will be below the new regulations of the lead and copper rule, except for when we create partial lead service lines, because when you disrupt the pipeline, then there's that potential to have high spikes in lead level.
All right, thank you, Dave. So bottom line is we do not have excessive levels of lead, leading into our house and the water that we're drinking and all that right now. Okay.
That is correct. Our water is safe.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson, then Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, and thank you very much for this information and for giving us an update on where we're at with this. Obviously, the intention in 2017 when we passed this before was to try to get this infrastructure out of the ground and get people's homes updated and upgraded. So I think these ideas I'm sort of falling into the category of all of the above. Certainly if we can utilize CDBG grants or grant funding for certain income levels, but then if we can just apply the menu of options, forgivable loans, like you said, with those improvement loans, maybe bringing the payment plans out on a longer period, possibly if we set some eligibility guidelines, maybe make a portion of that payable on sale of the home, things of that nature, just because these can be big ticket items for people that might not have that available. Now that said, and I recognize what I'm about to say isn't something we can do this year, but I would like to kind of put this on the table for some further discussion for next year. Alderman Rainey and I actually were talking about this over the weekend, and I think maybe some others have brought this up. When people have problems with these tie-ins to the sewers, it's kind of the same kind of cost problem, except it's typically even more than that. I'm seeing numbers that are easily over $15,000, approaching $20,000+ to get that sewer work done, to get those tie-ins repaired when they fail. And I'd like to look at wrapping this model into a way to help people finance those who have that come up, because it's a huge hit. It's hard for a lot of people in the community to manage that. So going forward, if we can kind of bring that into next year's conversation, I would appreciate that too.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think that if the city council could come up with a standard for what's economically distressed and economically disadvantaged, and then we can set up funding for that. Setting up the funding, I think, will be the biggest challenge, and there's not money now, so it might mean rate increases, and I wouldn't want to suggest any rate increases quite at this time. One of the things that the staff has been working on, Darrell King and others at the water plant, is to try to find an affordable water sewer rate. And actually, a while ago, we brought a suggestion to the city council, which was rightfully turned down because we didn't think it through and it put too much burden on condos and large apartments because they only have 1 meter. But since that time, we've been working with CMAP, Metropolitan Planning, and Elevate Energy to come up using their resources to try to find out what is an affordable water rate. We have a meeting scheduled for later this month, I think the 19th, in which we're hoping to get some final results on their recommendation on what an affordable rate would be. Based on that, we would take that affordable rate, figure out what the cost might be for the city to do that, and then try to adjust our water and sewer rates accordingly to still provide the affordable rate and still have then generate enough revenue to implement these different programs.
Great, thank you.
Alderman Fisk and then Alderman Sufferton.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So I've got a couple of questions. In the older part of town, we've had some interesting problems with various sewer and water lines running under people's garages and just increased costs of even trying to find where some of these lines go. So I think the $4,800 sounds low. And how do we help homeowners figure out what an estimate to replace their part of the line would cost? Have we done any sort of historical surveys of where some of these water lines run? And then a question too is that, do you know approximately what year builders stopped using lead pipes and went to copper? Or I would guess that would be fairly recent, maybe 1950s forward, or do you have any idea when that might be?
Unfortunately, lead piping was still used until the 1980s.
Wow.
So it wasn't until 1980 that they more or less prohibited lead piping in Evanston. It continued to be used in Chicago even much longer. Yes, we have the rare occasions where water services just don't go straight out to the street, but the vast majority of them do go out to the street. And it's similar to what the sewer lines. And one of the first recommendations I would give to anybody when they're purchasing a home is to make sure you have the sewer service line TV inspected for damage, but it also will give you a sense of where your sewer line runs, because they'll trace it out. So if it doesn't go straight out to the street, it might go to the street and take a bend and run down the parkway for a couple hundred feet. And chances are your water service does as well, because a lot of homes were built before the roads were developed, or the father owned a big plot and built a house for their child and ran the water and sewer service through their property, which then they sold off. And now it's, the water and sewer lines on somebody else's property. So that does happen.
Yeah. It's not a good surprise when that happens.
No, it is not.
It's expensive. So can you tell me when you replace a lead line, is it copper that you replace it with? Is that the recommended? What is the lead and copper law, or whatever what you're referring to? What part does copper play in that? Is there a danger with copper?
There could be a danger with copper if it exceeded the level. Again, it's still a heavy metal, but copper doesn't leach out into the water as readily as the lead does, so it's not as big as concern. But there is no other known product to be used, so copper is the material that is being used to replace water services with.
Okay, and then the final part of my question is, so the recommendation would be for a homeowner before they enter into decide whether or not they want to do this, is to do some line camera investigation. Is that what we're going to recommend?
Well, that's where their sewer services. Evanston, we have pretty good record of where the water services are. Because Evanston owned the portion of the water service from the street to the parkway, we know where all those are. Where Evanston doesn't own any portion of sewer service, and not generally they were placed in the same trench, but not in all cases. So a lot of times we're not even sure where the sewer service is located if it's not right in the same trench with the water service. But the water department has this information. Residents are more than willing to call us and check it out. We actually have an interactive map on our website that you can go to. We plot where we believe your water service is. We'll tell you what we believe the material of your water service is as well. You can see and we classify it between the water main and the parkway. That might be copper because we replaced the water main, but then we also say that from the parkway into your home would be lead if that's the case. So we have the records the best that we can. We were able to update our records for, I think, approximately 5,000 properties because we replaced water meters in those properties a couple of years ago. And as part of that project, we had the installer note what type of pipe material there was in the home, which we then corrected our database on that information as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Sufferman.
Have you guys gotten to where you considered which ones of these installations you would postpone in order to eat up some money? Sixth Ward has 4 installations that are 105 services, all with pretty substantial break history. Has there been any thought given to the next step of this?
I think at this point in time, staff would recommend that Ewing, the water main on Ewing, be the one that gets deferred a year. because it has the 3 breaks compared to 2 of the streets have 5 breaks. Another one has 4, and then there's 2 more that have 3, or 2 or 3, I guess. And Garrison, we already, City Council approved an MOU to replace the water main up there and resurface the street in conjunction with Wilmette, so we wouldn't want to eliminate that one. So Ewing is the street that we, right now, staff is looking at, and then it has $370,000 allocated from the water fund to put in the new water main, and then that would be the money along with our existing funds that we have in the water fund for the loan program that we would use to, if we got more residents interested in taking us up on the loan or grants, then that would be our money source for this year. Hopefully in 22, we'd be able to come back to the City Council with a recommendation on rate increases to meet the needs to do this full program.
Okay. Yeah, we saw with, and I know it's sewer side, but with Francine Allen, when she came with her situation with her connection being under Elgin Road, these could be really substantial costs that people aren't expecting. And then with, particularly when you're trying to coordinate it with the replacement of your service line and the water main, it happens at a time where you may not have planned for it as a homeowner. And so anything we can do to make the loan program match up with the potential actual costs would be great. So I appreciate the work that you guys have done on it. And if you know any state legislators to talk to about this, I think that would be a good opportunity. So, thanks a lot, Dave.
Sure.
Let's see, other questions or comments for Dave or his team?
So what I'll propose then are some modifications to the city code, modifying what our current loan amount is. I guess we'll make recommendations about economically disadvantaged and economically distressed, and talk about where we might apply grants, who would qualify for grants, and then who would qualify for the loans. And then we'll bring that back to the City Council in the very near future, so we can try to get this funding worked out for the 2021 water main project. I'm going to say about 6 months down, we'll probably come back to the City Council and try to talk about what our plan would be for ongoing years. And definitely we have to have a plan by 2024. So I'd rather get that established as soon as possible and start working in the right direction for the residents of Evanston as soon as possible.
All right, thank you, Dave. And if you can also give us a sense when you come back to what the funding sources may be, or how we'd have to look at that for grants that we may give to help lower income families.
Right. So for 2021, it would be from the water fund, and we'll defer the construction of a water main this particular year. In future years, I believe it will have to be some kind of water sewer rate increase. But again, until we have decided what an affordable rate is, and then find out what the overall cost would be, that all plays into the rate structure then.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that was just for discussion, so we don't have to vote on that. Thank you, Erica, for bringing that forward. We're now going to move to the consent agenda. I know there was an APW meeting tonight, and I know there's not much on the P&D, just 2 items for action. So if council members could just take a minute, look at the agenda and let me know what you'd like us to pull off the agenda tonight, that would be helpful.
Could you pull P2? I just have a couple of things I want to run through on that. Shouldn't hopefully take long.
P2, got it, off.
A2, and
A2.
We need to pull A13 to suspend the rules.
I think we can. I thought before we moved
you
the
can
motion.
just suspend the rules and then move it with the consent agenda, if that's what you wish.
So you do have to pull it off?
No, you can just suspend the rules beforehand and include it. You don't, if that's what you wish to do. That's what we've done in the past, at least.
So I move that we suspend the rules as to A13 to allow for introduction and action at the same meeting on February 8th today.
Is that the only item that had a?
I thought so.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
All right. City Clerk, you take
Mayor.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Braithwaite.
No, I just wanted to remove item A4 for a quick comment.
Okay. All right.
And then can I have a question for E1?
All right. Which one?
E1?
E1. Okay. So E1's off. What else?
I'm looking for the West End TIF.
That's E1.
Thank you. So is 13 off for discussion, or it's just off for suspension and it'll pass in consent?
It doesn't need to be off. Just wanted to flag that.
Yeah, we'll just do the motion to suspend the rules, make it for introduction and action, and then we'll do the whole consent agenda.
Okay.
It'll be on it. All right, so right now we have P2 coming off, A2, A4, and E1. Okay, hearing and seeing nothing else then. Before we vote on the consent agenda, there was a motion to suspend the rules to allow for introduction and action for item, which item was that?
A13. A13.
For A13. City Clerk, you take the roll on that.
Yes. Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Rue Simmons.
Aye.
And Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
All right, thank you, Clerk Reed. So A13 passes on a 9-0 vote, allowing for introduction and action this evening of that item. All right, Alderman Suffredin, could you move the consent agenda then?
Sure. I move the consent agenda, item A1, approval of the City of Evanston payroll and bills list and credit card activities. Staff recommends City Council approval of the City of Evanston payroll for the period of January 4th, 2020 through January 17th, 2021 in the amount of $3,010,175.02. Bills list for February 2021, fiscal year 2021. I think there's a typo there.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yeah. In the amount of $2,958,402.21, and February 9th, 2021, fiscal year 2021, in the amount of $1,875,712.34, and the credit card activity for the period ending December 26, 2020, in the amount of $158,320.95. That is for action. Item A2.
Hey, Tom. Because you guys had AP and W this morning, you can just move the whole consent agenda, less, A2, A4, P2, and E1.
All right, I'm happy to do that too. I move the entire consent agenda minus items A2, A4, P2, and E1.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. City Clerk, could you please take the roll on the consent agenda?
Please. Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Rue Simmons.
Aye.
And Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
All right. Now we're going to move to the items that were removed from the consent agenda. Alderman Suffredin, can you move A2?
Sure. I move approval of the BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity. Staff recommends City Council approval of City of Evanston's BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity for the period ending December 26, 2020, in the amount of $6,400.64.
Second?
Second.
All right. Seeing no discussion, City Clerk, could you please take the roll on A2?
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
And Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
And Alderman Suffredin.
I abstain.
All right, so A2, approval of BMO Harris Amazon credit card. Activity passes the Evanston City Council on an 8-0 vote with Alderman Suffredin abstaining. Alderman Suffredin, can you move A4?
Item A4 is approval of a contract renewal award with Clean Slate Chicago LLC for park mowing services. Staff recommends City Council authorize the city manager to execute a contract renewal award to Clean Slate Chicago LLC for the 2021 park mowing services in the amount of $26,180.28. Funding for this project is included in the General Fund Public Works Greenways account, which has a total allocation of $162,000 and no expenditures yet fiscal year 2021 for action.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so this item's open for discussion. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I made some comments earlier at the AP&W meeting, and I've shared at the top of the year, I'm going to be paying real close attention to awards like this, where we definitely have the capacity within our town for someone to provide this service. In between the meetings, I did have an opportunity to look up Green Slate Chicago, and they just so happens to be one of those business with a very special mission statement. And so in this case, you know, I'm going to reconsider holding it. But I do think it's important as we move forward. And I say this to our city manager and staff, like, this is landscaping. We have landscapers in town, and I only saw one Evanston business representative. And if it's like pulling teeth, I want to just make sure that we're giving our businesses, particularly those that pay taxes in town, and some of us, even in some of the businesses, the residents live in town, an opportunity to get the award. So this particular business, they hire ex-felons. So I think that is a very important mission statement. Doesn't matter where you come from, but I will be paying attention as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite. Any other discussion or questions? All right, seeing none, City Clerk, could you please take the roll on A4?
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
And Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen, could you please move P2?
Yes, P2, ordinance 5021, granting a special use permit for a planned development located at 718 through 732 Main Street in the B2 Business District and the Dempster Main Overlay District. The Plan Commission and staff recommend adoption of this ordinance, approving a special use for a planned development in the B2 Business District to construct a 5-story mixed-use building with commercial real estate space, 120 dwelling units, 47 parking spaces. I move approval.
Second.
All right, this item's open for discussion. Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I wanted to take this off the agenda because a few, concerns and questions came up over the past couple of weeks, as well as I think we've negotiated an additional benefit for the neighborhood, thanks to some of the input from some of the neighbors. I want to verify that Mr. Dinson's with us here, the developer. Just
He was on earlier.
okay, so he's here. Okay. Just so I know that he's heard what I'm saying, but I'm going to run through a few things here to make sure that we're all on the same page. One thing that came up in some conversations that I do want to point out, that the building is going to be ADA compliant. Of course, it has to be legally, but some people had raised some concerns about that. There was some conversation from the staff about maybe some other things or amenities in the building, but it will be fully ADA compliant. Snow removal is of concern to the neighbors. I know that the developer had looked into the possibility of retaining somebody to remove more than just the snow on their property, but was not able to identify a contractor willing to work on other people's property. What I do just want to point out is that snow removal has been kind of an ongoing problem for the neighbors. It's a significant concern. So just to make sure that whoever's on site for the property after it's completed makes certain that the snow is removed in an appropriate way. It's not pushed up against garage doors, all that kind of stuff. I just want to, make sure that I'm totally clear on that. The townhomes to the southwest, we all understand that there is fencing. The fences are going to be replaced with the gates. I just want to make sure that there's a clear understanding that you will work with them. You're not just going to have the contractor come in and put a fence. You'll work with them to make sure the gate placement and the fence placement is appropriate for, moving the trash carts out to where they need to go. So you'll just work with them on the, exact installation on that fencing and the gates. Correct?
Yes,
Yeah, thank you. Is it also correct that you're willing to do $1,000 a year for 10 years for tree work and tree maintenance or replacement over the next 10 years? Do I understand that right? Or was it 5? 5, I had a note here. I thought it was.
We had agreed to 5 years extra. I think that.
Oh, I apologize. Okay, so I misread this. Amount. Let's see. Purchase of 5 years trees. All right, so just tell me, how much money is it going to be? So I got like a bunch of notes here, and it's turned into a bunch of scribbles. So
we were willing to do an additional public benefit because it's in the neighborhood of $1,000 per year for 5 years for trees in the area.
Okay. Okay, so I'll make a motion at the end of the conversation to add that into the what we're agreeing to here. So with regard to the dog run, I know that after some feedback from some neighbors, that you put that in. I just kind of want to be clear to the neighbors. This isn't for people to walk their dogs. People are still going to walk their dogs, but I think sort of the idea here is it's for that, quick run outside, so that people aren't just doing the quick run outside to the, to the house right next door. All the dogs, peeing in the same spot every night. So it's more to kind of cover, that sort of need, not replacing the walks. And so we're clear on that, right? I'm sorry, you're clear. So here's the ask. When you put the fencing in around the dog area, if you can just kind of, be in touch with the neighbors behind who have the garages to ensure that that's not going to obstruct, getting in and out of those garages or your own or their snow removal. So, I understand that has to be fenced in some way. So just, again, reach out to them, work with them, ensure that that effort wasn't a problem. And I'm checking my notes here so I don't forget anything. All right, sorry everybody. Okay, so what I'd like to do is make a motion to add that the developer will pay $1,000 a year for the next 5 years to help pay for tree replacements and tree work within a 0.25 mile radius of the property.
For a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, City Clerk, could you take the roll on that motion?
Yes. Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
And Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
All right, on a 9-0 vote, that amendment passes.
All right, so I move that we proceed as amended.
Is there? Okay, so that was moved and seconded. Alderman Fleming has a question or comment?
Yeah, I mean, I had a comment about the project. Are we at that point yet? Are you still making?
Yeah, we're talking about the project.
Okay. So, looked at the material and I think it's a fine project. I was initially, some residents were concerned about parking, but it seems like that maybe is, at least for some residents in my ward, some changes have happened that they, understand and feel better about that. I think my overall concern, and not anything personal, Paul, thanks for coming, but is to the point of affordable housing, right? So I know you have over the 10%, and I don't think this is the right paper, but you have over the 10%. However, they are smaller units. And as I think about the units that we've been putting online recently, a lot of them are smaller, which I guess is what developments seem to be building now is, micro units or 1-bedroom units. But I really wish and hope as a city, we do more for, our families, or even, single parents who have 2 kids who need a, 2-bedroom. So I do appreciate you putting, I think, 1 2-bedroom in there. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong paper. But I just wish it was more. So I think I had a principle in solidarity with the call that we've been having from many residents for the 4 years that I've been here about, pushing our agenda and really getting some family affordable housing. I'm going to vote against this project, but I do wish you all the best. And thank you for the addition of trees and the ADA accessibility, which I know is needed as well.
Thank you, Woman Fleming. Anything else? All right, seeing none, City Clerk, could you please take the roll on P2, which is Ordinance 5-0-21, granting a special use permit for planned development located at 718 to 732 Main Street in the B2 Business District in the ODM Dempster, Maine Overlay District.
Yes. Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
No.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
And Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
All right, thank you, Clerk. So on an 8-1 vote, P2 passes the Evanston City Council. So congratulations, Paul, and good luck with the project. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right. We're now going to move to our last item that was removed, which was E1. Alderwoman Ruth Simmons, could you move that motion?
Absolutely. Am I on mute?
You're on. I can hear you.
E1, the Economic Development Committee and staff recommend City Council adoption of Resolution 19R21, authorizing the city manager to negotiate an consulting contract with Kane McKenna and Associates Incorporated to study the creation of a new TIF district. Funding will be from the West Evanston TIF Consulting Services. The fund would be reimbursed from the new West Evanston TIF upon generating increment. I move approval.
Second.
All right. This item's been moved and seconded. It's open for discussion.
Thank you. And I'm hoping that we have Paul Zomnazak or some other staff here to speak to this, but there were some comments and community discussion relating to this item and the TIF, and this is not the proposal of a new development. It is an opportunity to create a financial tool or expand a financial tool that could help us pursue and implement the vision that we have for the Weston area. It could include support with expanding affordable housing, other support for housing and residents in the ward. And the future of the Civic Center seems to be likely better serving the city, not as our municipal building, and any increment there could help support the ward. This new proposal could include the family focus building or the foster school building, and other areas, including the business district around Simpson and Ashland, and these areas that are unfortunately outside of the current TIF boundaries would be included and would be available to enjoy the TIF increment and help us realize the vision. So it is the opposite of what has been shared in some cases, and it is a very useful tool that has been used other places in our city, and one that I hope we can use here in the West End. It is a goal over the last few years, actually, that we could get to this place of re-tiffing this area so that we could have more economic opportunity. And Paul, if you could speak to, oh, I'm sorry. There were other hands from the council. I'm sorry, Paul.
All right, thank you. We do have Paul, lots of hands up. Let's go with Alderman Fleming, then Alderman Wilson.
Paul, you might be able to answer this question. I think Alderman Simmons mentioned it, but I also would like the city manager to address it, because part of the comments that I wanted us to clarify is the memo talks about the future use, the possible uses of where the Civic Center is currently located. And I know last year when you came, Paul, with the estimate on our property values, we all kind of made a commitment. We all made a commitment that Civic Center, nothing would happen without a lot of public input. So I think maybe some of the language in the memo causes people to think that we're down a road of selling the Civic Center or redeveloping it without public comment. So if you or Erica can just kind of speak to that issue a little bit, so people don't feel like we're putting the cart before the horse there.
Oh, if you want to start, I'll speak to it after you do. And we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Paul.
All right, once he figures that out, I will speak to that issue. So as it stands now, the Civic Center is included in this TIF study area, and we want to gather as much information as possible so that if the point comes in the future where the city council wants to decide what to do with the future of this property, then the city council will have all the information at its disposal with which to make the decision. So this is a long-range planning tool, as well as a tool for us to understand what the value is and what could possibly be leveraged with the property. So there's no plan on the table right now to sell anything. We are just in the information gathering stage, so that when the time comes for us to get to the point where we're going to start making some decisions, we have all the information and tools available to us. And with that, I'll see if Paul has fixed his sound issue. It looks like he might be dialing in on his phone, so it might be another minute.
All right.
Okay, I'm back, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome, Paul. All right.
Yes, this is the second time this has happened with my city-issued laptop, so I will be speaking with IT tomorrow about that. But thank you for the opportunity. I did want to support what Erica had just said, and also to pick up on Alderman Fleming's lead. The particular study area that we've proposed and that our TIF consultant has verified as TIF eligible really is designed to help support what we think would be redevelopment opportunities west of Green Bay Road, or kind of west of the Metro tracks. And that traditionally has been the area of Evanston's kind of historic Black community and the business districts that our Black community had started. And that is where the investment is needed. So when you go east of the tracks, it's a very different feel, very different EAV, equalized assessed value. So our thought was, in order to help spark additional development, whether that be affordable housing, market rate housing, new commercial development on Simpson or Green Bay, kind of just south of that storage center, those types of projects would really benefit from having some public investment, and that could come from the Civic Center if it were to be sold at some point. So if we believe as a community that over the next 20, let's call it 15 to 20 years, that Civic Center becomes something else and maybe becomes privately held, and generates taxes, maybe we could benefit from that. And what I say is like funnel the money under the tracks along Simpson into that west end of the 5th Ward to really get those projects done that we all talk about as a community. This particular study area wasn't formed to create a TIF to create increment for the redevelopment of the Civic Center. Really, the idea is we need an economic engine, and that engine would be the sale of the Civic Center someday. And guess what? If it doesn't happen, the TIF could still work. It just wouldn't be as robust. It's just an idea. This is literally the beginning. We talk about cart before the horse, or chicken or the egg. We have to start somewhere. And so we're coming to you today to get permission to issue this consulting contract, which will then open up a very long, robust public process. This will take a minimum of 6 months to get through our process and implement it. So literally it'll be post-election before any decisions are made. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions from what I just said.
All right, Alderman, let's go Alderman Wilson, Braithwaite, and then Ravel.
Thank you. And I'll start by saying I don't think I've ever voted for a new TIF, even though we've had them on the table, as some of my colleagues are quick to remember from time to time. However, as we vetted this in the Economic Development Committee, I do think that this one makes sense. So I am going to support this. I think most of the points that I was concerned the community would be worried about were covered, but I just want to point out that this is not some kind of tool for gentrification of this neighborhood. This is to support the community and to support the neighborhood. I fully recognize that TIFs in other communities and other places have been used for that kind of purpose, but that's not what we're doing here. And as Mr. Zamazak just said, this is a starting point. This community has a lot of great ideas, but we need to, funnel those ideas into something that's going to be tangible and really support this community. So I am going to be supportive of this moving forward.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, Alderman Wilson, I do recall you voting no on a few TIF projects, and it's good to see you supporting this. I'm also going to support this and just want to applaud the efforts of Alderman Simmons. I think when we look back for, if we want, years from now, similar to what was created in the 8th Ward, the Hartree TIF, the Washington National TIF, when you generate enough income in the opportunities for affordable housing, particularly on the West End, when you look at our combined wards, it's just really nice to know that future council will have the tools necessary to help stabilize our community through this tool. So definitely looking forward to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Ravel and Alderman Nguyen.
So I just have a couple of questions because I do think this is a good step for us to take. But so I'm just wondering, we're talking about a TIF conservation area, and that's different from the other TIFs that we have in the community. And I think, and is there a real difference in terms of what that allows us to do, or is it just a way of meeting the eligibility requirements? Is one question.
Okay, can I answer that, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Paul, please.
Thank you. So it's a good question, Alderman Ravel. There's two ways to qualify a TIF. One way is it's considered a blighted area, and the other is conservation area. Conservation area is a little more challenging, and it reflects the fact that there are portions of that district that could slip into blighted status if active economic development isn't happening. So that's where that classification comes from. And some of the terms for classifying it as a conservation TIF are kind of spelled out. I think it's in my staff report. And if not, I can try to clarify that separately. But it's just the way it's the way that you classify the TIF in terms of the state statute.
Okay.
So we're not
There's al-
suggesting, the consultant's not saying that this is a blighted area. It's an opportunity to conserve it from potential future blight.
And there's a reference to the possibility of doing a housing impact study. So what do you mean by that?
That's an important aspect of this particular TIF district, because there are quite a few residential properties within the proposed study area boundary. So the state requires that we do a housing impact study in that case. And the reason we do that is to make really, in Evanston, the reason it's going to be is because we're going to make a commitment that we're not going to be buying residential housing and raising it for commercial development. What we're going to commit to, I think that's one of the reasons we're proposing this TIF, is that we're going to actually use TIF increment to help build new affordable housing, because 50% of the cost of developing new affordable housing can be paid for with TIF. And then secondly, we can use TIF to help repair housing. That's an eligible expense in a TIF district. So our housing impact study will actually be used to show how this TIF district is going to help housing, which is usually the opposite. You're saying, you're trying to prove to the community that you're not going to demolish housing.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, I wanted to say I am going to support this, and I do want to bring up a point that unfortunately the TIF gets a bad name because the city of Chicago does such a terrible job with their TIFs, and nothing could be more different than the way the city of Evanston handles our TIFs. I mean, they have always proved to be very successful. We take great care in drawing the lines to make sure that they are productive and they're precise. So I think, unfortunately, if people understand TIFs from a Chicago standpoint, that's a terrible example of, or a very good example of how not to do it. But our history of TIFs here in Evanston is excellent. And if someone, that we have that on our website in terms of what the value that's been generated has been over the years. Just as an example, the main Chicago TIF is a conservation TIF, and particularly that was labeled that way because especially the buildings west of the viaduct on Main Street are a certain age and were in a certain condition and hadn't had a certain amount of repair over a long enough period of time that there was enough concern that they would not become dilapidated immediately, but they would require a lot of help. And that main Chicago TIF is now generating enough income, or will generate enough income for us to do significant water main repairs on Main Street, and an area that the water mains are, I believe that chart that we looked at earlier were built in 1907. So that's an example of where we have a TIF that is working for us in ways that we would not be able to do immediately ourselves from our own budget. So when we use TIFs as carefully as we do, we have been very successful. So I want to make sure people understand how careful we are and how the types of projects that we've been able to do with all kinds of our TIFs. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other comments or questions for Paul? Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to say one really quick comment to what Alderman Nguyen just said. On the project that the City Council just approved on the Vogue property is within that TIF district. And the developer didn't ask for TIF money to do that project, but that project is going to generate significant increment that will further help us with additional improvements in the area. It's early enough in the TIF. I think there's another 15 years left where that Vogue project will generate a good chunk of money for the TIF district. So just an FYI.
Mayor Haggerty, I have one question for Paul. I'm not going to get into the TIF issue. It's not my role as clerk, but it's relating to records keeping with TIF, particularly, the clerk even has a few roles relating to TIF. May I ask the question, Mr. Mayor?
I guess so, sure.
Paul, I've noticed that on TIF reports, not getting into any of the comments that were made by Alderman Wynn or anyone else about TIFs, but I'd noticed on the TIF reports from 2017 forward, it seems as though there is a place where we had traditionally listed all expenditures over $10,000, and it seems that on all of the TIF reports moving from the start of this term, 2017 forward, we've decided to no longer list the TIF expenditures, and those TIF expenditures don't seem to be on the books anywhere else.
Yeah, I would need to take a look at those, but I'm going to guess the reason why is because there weren't any. It just depends on what section you're talking about. We haven't really used TIF a lot in recent years. One of the reasons why is because there really hasn't been any increment in most of the TIFs. So we can follow up with you on that answer. I can work with Hitesh Desai to get a formal answer to you on that.
Yeah, I'm particularly thinking about the Howard Ridge TIF, where there's a few $1 million that was, I think there was some expenditure there, and it's just not listed on any of the reports. Thank you.
All right, Alderman Wilson.
You kind of mentioned something in passing about the developer not asking for TIF money, but I just want to be 100% clear. They also did not get any for that project, so they didn't ask for it, and they did not get it, and I would not have offered it. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. All right, seeing no more further questions or comments of Paul, this item E1, which is moved and seconded. It's resolution 19-R-21, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a consulting contract with Kane McKenna and Associates, Inc. to study the creation of a new TIF district, has been moved and seconded. So City Clerk, could you please take the roll on E1?
My apologies. My phone started ringing at the same time and cut me out of here. Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey. Sorry, I can't see you. Okay, I can see that. I can see that you're saying yes.
Aye.
Or aye. Okay. Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Wynn.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson. I see an aye. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
And Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
All right, E1 passes the Evanston City Council on a 9-0 vote. We're now going to move to call of the wards. We'll start with Alderman Ravel tonight.
Just to say that I'm having a special ward meeting dealing with some Canal Shores initiatives this coming Thursday, February 11th at 7 p.m.
Great, thank you. Alderman Rainey.
We're having a Clyde Kellen meeting on Thursday evening.
Thursday, excellent, thank you. Alderman Fleming.
Yeah, I just want to thank Edgar Cano and his staff. I know they get a lot of flack with the snow removal, but they were really outworking. Edgar was really great to respond to some neighbors I have who were elderly or disabled and could not get out of their curb cuts because of where the snow lands, and he had people out there shoveling bus stops. So thank you so much, Edgar. Also, I wanted to thank Ike and his team. Obviously we get lots of emails about people's frustration with the vaccine, but had a few emails, and I actually had the chance to go over and watch the operation, and people who were able to get a vaccine were very complimentary to the staff and the expediency and everything else. So 2 areas which people are getting hammered over the head with the snow and the public health. So I wanted to publicly thank them for their work.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to thank the city mayor and Ike for the response to the COVID vaccinations. That's going really well. I really appreciate that, and I know the public is very appreciative of your efforts. So thank you so much. Next Tuesday, the 16th, we have an NU City Committee meeting. And then on Wednesday, the 17th, there is a NU community meeting where we're going to talk about off-campus issues. And then on Tuesday, March 2nd, is our regular quarterly ward meeting. So I hope everyone can join in there at 7 p.m. And that's my report.
All right, thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to announce that this Thursday, it's either 6 or 7, and all second ward residents, you would have received a mailer and also our newsletter for the link for our ward meeting. We plan on hosting Director Ogbo to give an update on the vaccine distribution. We also have a new business that's looking to start up in the ward, and then we will be discussing 2 developments as well. So please stay tuned to the newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just been verified that water main is from 1907 to me. So I want to thank Edgar Cano and his whole team for all of their help. They have helped a number of residents in the 3rd ward who were stuck and helped us solve a number of problems of too much snow and where to put it. And then I also want to thank Ike Ogbo and Greg Olson and their team, and also do a shout out to say, if you are a medical or healthcare professional and have time on your hands, you can become part of the vaccination team and Medical Reserve Corps. I have a good friend who just had probably the best day of the whole COVID pandemic, because she got to inoculate people for an afternoon. So I urge any of the rest of us who are out there who have those healthcare skills to join. And finally, I want to thank the owner of a relatively new business here on the main Dempster Mile, Journey Suddeth at Noir de Ben, at 1309 Chicago Avenue, which is an amazing place. A place of chocolate and pastries and all kinds of other delicious food. We had a Zoom fundraiser for District Foundation 65, in which everyone went and picked up a sampling of chocolates from Noir de Ben, and then we were all instructed as we tasted, and it was heavenly. It's the best fundraiser I've been to in a number of years. I highly recommend it. We all got to sit there in our pajamas and eat chocolate and learn all about it. So I just do it this way every time from now on, Foundation 65. So
Can you say the owner's name, Alderman Nguyen?
It's Journey Suddeth.
Shannon.
No, everyone was calling her Journey.
Is that her stage name? Is that her stage name?
Let her live.
Is that her club name, Alderman Simmons?
I know. Look, Peter, I'm getting good at Noir de Ben, okay? So I just say,
Yeah.
there is such,
It's all good.
it is unbelievable. She is an artist.
Yeah.
An artist and an amazing teacher. Yeah. So
Yes. She's a graduate of Sunshine, and we know her well. We're really excited for her.
Yes, I remember her coming through Sunshine. I do. So it's a great new business, and she's going great guns.
That's great. All right, let's go to Alderman Wilson.
That's awesome. I want to thank all the residents and people in the neighborhood and businesses around the Vogue property for attending the ward meeting, for participating in conversations, and calling me, taking my calls. It was a lot of really great feedback. I think we got a much better project in the end, and I really appreciate getting that feedback and input and that collaborative process. In conjunction with that, I also want to make a reference to get that process rolling for reinstating the permit parking. So I'd like to make a reference for permit parking on that block of Sherman, and details will follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman Simmons.
Thank you. Just reminding the 5th Ward residents that we have our ward meeting on Wednesday, the 10th, 7 p.m. on Zoom. We will have Sarah Flax there to continue our discussion on property standards and inspections, as well as affordable housing. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Selfman.
Sure. I would like to thank Lucas Tatara and Mike Rivera, because they did thank you
And also congratulate and welcome new Senator Mike Simmons, who represents part of Evanston.
Great. Thank you. And I think that's our roundup for tonight on call the wards. Alderman Wilson, would you read us into executive session?
Yes, pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding personnel, litigation, and minutes. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. These exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2A, C1, C11, and C21.
For a second.
Second.
All right, seeing no discussion, City Clerk, could you please take the roll to recess into executive session?
Yes. Alderman Revelle.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Rue Simmons.
Aye.
And Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
All right. So on a 9-0 vote, we are going to recess into executive session. I want to thank everybody for coming out to the City Council meeting tonight. Our next meeting will be in 2 weeks on February 22nd. And we'll be talking about a variety of items, including the Climate Action Resiliency Plan and equity. So we'll see you all on the 22nd. And we're going to now move into executive session.